Welcome back to the Soul Good podcast. My name is Brittany Rose, and I am your host. Thank you so much for joining us back in this space today. It is a pleasure to be here. Today feels really good, actually, and so I'm actually really excited to be in this space. I have a new setup for those of you who are watching the visual experience. This is not the last time I'm going to rearrange my set either. One thing that you should know about me is that I have a tendency to rearrange furniture. My son came in last night, and when he saw this, he said, "I'm not gonna lie, this looks nice." And I was like, "Okay, thank you." Lets me know that I'm on the right track. But I've been intentional about trying to create a space physically that represents what this space is. So for those of you who this is your first time tuning in, or you've never listened to the Soul Good podcast, our platform is a safe space for people to share truths about their lives and their journeys, and the healing that they've done, the growing that they've done, the evolving that they've done. On the Soul Good podcast, we talk about all things healing, pretty much. We talk about all things evolving and all things just to really be the wonderful people that God created us to be. Last season, I was very intentional about speaking about specific topics. This season, I'm a little more lax in my approach to topics. I kind of just want to make more content that pertains to very specific niche situations and give you guys valuable information, as well as really informative interviews with other people who are from various backgrounds and have experience doing a plethora of different professions in life. Like, I want to be able to have like doctors and therapists come on the show, other coaches who work in this field and have taken their healing journey to the next level by offering themselves to what it is that they do. Um, I've reached out to some pretty cool people who I think would have a host of information to share with you all. I'm really excited about that part because I love learning. I find it invaluable to learn from others, especially people who have been in similar situations. And so that's pretty much what this platform is and what we do here on the Soul Good podcast. In the beginning of each episode, I like to give you guys an update on things that are going on in my life and what I've been doing. And child, life has been lifing, like really, really good things, but also just like busy, super busy. And I'm trying my best, as I spoke about this last episode, to just be consistent. And so I started up school again, and this is my first quarter in the counseling and psychology program that I've now entered. Previously, I was going to school for leadership, and it was cool, but it just didn't feel like for me, for like the what I want to do when I grow up. I was gonna say what I do when I grow up. What I do, well, yeah, when I grow up in the next 5 to 10 years. And so I wanted to switch over to something that felt more in alignment with me and something that I could actually really engage myself in rather than just like take classes to get a degree. And so switching over to the counseling and switching over to the counseling and psychology program has been really exciting, actually. I chose this degree because I have always had an interest in people and why they behave the way they do, like how they came to be the person that they are. I've particularly just been interested in people's backgrounds. I remember when I was in high school, I was in college and I took this sociology class. And from there, I just really grew interested in social backgrounds, psychological backgrounds, and as I've become a life and relationship coach, a lot of the research that I do pertains to people's behaviors and human development. And so, like right now, I'm taking this human development class, and it's funny because like any other like quarters, I'm not reading those books. Like I'm, you know why I'm here. Like I'm not here to read page per page in these textbooks. But like it's so funny because yesterday I was doing my homework all day, and it took me all day because I was reading word for word the textbook for my psychology class. And it's so funny because I'm like glued to the information. I just didn't see myself being this passionate about it. But um ironically, I don't think it's ironic. I think it's the intention of God. But me studying this is actually helping me in so many other areas. Like I'm learning a lot about human development. And right now we're kind of focusing on like infant development. And it's just really interesting because learning about how younger kids, like newborn to 7, how their brains develop and how they work and the things that they're capable of doing and not capable of doing. To me, it's fascinating. Like it blows my mind. And it's actually helping me to be a better mother because I'm learning to understand my kids and how they develop, and how, particularly like my small son, and how I can, better show up for him. And so I'm just excited to be able to continue to pursue this degree, but not only pursue it for obviously the benefit of having a degree, but to actually be able to use the information and carry forth with using my degree on this platform, and then also just using it in my daily life. So yeah, it's fun to incorporate that knowledge. When I was in high school, I was a terrible student. Like I never applied myself. I was just there to get by. I was not I didn't feel confident in myself. And I think a lot of us go through that stage where we're in school and like because maybe we don't understand or things are hard for us, it can really break our confidence if we don't work through those rough patches and get the support that we need academically. And so now being an adult and being a student and having an advocate for myself, like I have to show up for myself. And my truth is I failed like my last 2 quarters back to back, and then they put me on academic probation. And so I had to fight to get back in school this quarter. But the fact that I was pursuing my psychology degree and it was going to be my first quarter in this program, I was very passionate about getting back, and not just getting back, but being way more intentional. Like in my classes now, I'm really applying myself to my work and kind of going above and beyond what the requirements are. Like we have these discussions, and if you're a college student and you go to school, then I mean, you may know about discussions, but we have these boards where, our professors like us to like converse with one another and chat about the things that we've learned in the past. I've been one of the people that I'm like, wrap this up. Like I'm if it's 100 word, minimum, you're getting 100 words, 99 words in a period, and take it or leave it. But like now I'm going above the minimal word limit, and I'm actually like putting some thought into the things that I'm saying, and it's just nice to see myself be way more serious about my education and also passionate about it now that I'm going to school for something that I actually really love. So that has been fun. I'm actually enjoying being a student, and I just love that for me because it was not my way, and I feel a lot more confident in myself just in general, being able to succeed academically just based off the fact that I had such trouble with it in the past when I was in high school. So that's how that has been going. The other part of my life that I'm kind of stepping into with a different perspective is being single. I mean, I've been single for a while. It's been like a year and a half, maybe a little longer, but I'm just now getting to the space where I've accepted it and I'm ready to like move forward. It's a weird place to be because it definitely is challenging. Like I miss companionship and I miss having someone, but on the flip side, I also am thoroughly enjoying just being by myself and taking each day as it comes with that territory. Uh, my previous relationship was very difficult for me to move on from. Um, it took me a really, really long time, and probably the longest it's ever taken me to move on from a relationship and from a breakup. For me, I will say that when you are friends with someone and you have a friendship with them prior to dating, it's a beautiful experience when you start dating, right? Because you're like, oh, this is great. We were friends and now we're together and it feels great to love you on a deeper level. However, if and when that relationship romantically does not work out, then you run the risk of not only losing that person romantically, but losing them as a friend as well. And, out of respect, I will not go into detail about my relationship with this individual, but I will say that it was very difficult, very, very difficult to um, grieve the loss of that friendship. And I'm just now getting to a space where I've accepted it and I'm able to move on, but it's taken me longer than I expected. And I've had to just kind of give myself grace through that process because my feelings were genuine and that's just the truth. So I can't run from that. I've done my healing work throughout this entire process. And although it's taken me longer than I expected, I feel good about where I'm at. And I'm actually really optimistic about the future. Um, I started dating a little bit ago, just trying to like test the waters, I guess, and see if it was something that I was interested in. And ironically enough, like it was just too much work. Like, I don't want to take away from the benefit of relationships because I definitely think that romantic relationships are beneficial. But I have to be honest about the fact that it is work, like when you're dating, when someone's pursuing you, when you have to reciprocate, when you have to show up for somebody and support somebody else and be there for them. That's all work at the end of the day. And I actually really respect that work. I respect the space of relationships enough to know that I ain't there. Like, I'm just not there. And, I'm okay with that. As somebody who's been like a serial relationship girly, it feels good to just sit this one out for a little bit. I'm not saying I'm not open to love because I absolutely like want to be married one day and I want to be a wife and I want, all of those things, but I don't want it to the point where I'm willing to sacrifice where I'm at within myself and the work that I've been doing to get to a better place. And so, I also don't want to waste my time or anybody else's. And so for me, not focusing on dating has given me a lot of time to pour into my academics and being a mother, and then just doing what it is that God has called me to do with this platform, because I do feel like this is my responsibility at this time. And I don't want anything to take away from my mission and my agenda that I have with God. And so, yeah, that's kind of just been the update on my life and um, what's been going on with me. And with that being said, without further ado, we are going to transition into what we are talking about today. And so, be it as it may, I wanted to spend today talking about when is the right time to let go of a relationship? Like, when is it finally time to let go? Right? Like, I think that that's something that everybody struggles with. Nobody's exempt from that, because when you love somebody, you obviously want your relationship to work, right? And so, um, sometimes and I'm only going to talk about myself in this instance because I know for me, I have a tendency, y'all, to hang on. You hear me? Like, I I I will hang on to someone until there's no string left, like until the string just breaks and I fall. That is how much I will hang on to a relationship. And so for me, this episode is going to be personal, but also I'm teaching to me. We're talking about this collectively because these are all things that I've had to observe for myself as well. And I have been through a lot of these different types of situations as it pertains to when it's time to let go of a relationship. And so, as we introduce this topic, we're asking the question, what does it mean to let go of someone? Now, y'all know, as I said, I am a scholar. Like this platform, we do a lot of definitions. This is a collaborative space. Nothing that I say or teach is just straight from my brain. This is a collaborative effort to bring you valuable information from a plethora of sources. So today, we have a licensed MFT, which is marriage and family therapist, and her name is Shelly Bullard. She had a really, really, really beautiful definition of what it means to let go of someone, and I wanted to share that with you all. And so, by her definition, she says, letting go of someone means to sever the connection you have with them, even if you'll always have a place in your heart for them and love them. When you realize this person isn't truly for you, you have to accept it. And now I love this explanation because for me, it really captured the complexities of what it means to let go, right? Like it's not like you're just throwing someone to the wolves and saying ta-ta, kiss, kiss, and move on with your life, right? Like it's a very difficult thing to do. And so I really enjoyed that she was compassionate in her explanation of what it means to let go, empathetic, by letting us know that you do love this person, right? There might have been some unhealthy situations or toxic behaviors displayed within the relationship, but nonetheless, you do love this person, right? And even the fact that you'll always love them. I like that she doesn't negate the fact that your love doesn't go away for this person, right? But within the same breath, while you love them, while you'll always love them, you can accept that this person just simply isn't right for you. And that is hard, right? Like that's just straight up hard. And so we're going to get straight into it with understanding why is it so hard to let go. There's countless reasons of why it's hard to let go. One of the main things that I identify with when it comes to why it's so hard to let go of relationships is fear. And now, when it comes to fear, there's fear of a lot of different things that take place when we're talking about releasing romantic partners that just simply no longer serve you, right? And so there's fear of failure, right? This is the fear of people knowing that your relationship ended. That can be tough, right? Not to say that you're staying in relationships for people. Sometimes that is the case. Sometimes other people want you to stay together. And so that's what you're doing, right? And you may not want to disappoint those people. You may not want to let your community down because people look up to you and this person. There's a lot of different reasons why people have a fear of failure when it comes to their relationships. I've heard of people that are, married for over 14 years and they don't want to walk away because the time that they've spent, right? The fear of losing the time that they've spent with that individual. And so that's one component of fear that keeps people in relationships. Another component of fear is not finding love again, right? Like you fear that you'll never find love again. You might ask yourself, like, will I find someone to love me? Like, am I going to find someone to accept me? Those are all really realistic things to ask yourself when you're in a relationship, especially when you run the risk of losing that relationship. It's quite natural that fear emerges in the face of a breakup. Another fear that goes along with knowing when to let go is the fear of hurting others. Sometimes you know that your relationship has expired. You are aware that you're not happy. You're aware that you may be better off without this person. However, you can't bring yourself to end things because you are worried about, well, damn, if I do this, how am I going to make this person feel? If I break up with them, what are they going to do? Sometimes we're in relationships where the other person may even, manipulate or guilt trip you by behaving in manners that causes concern if you were to break up with them, right? And so now you're kind of guilt tripped into staying because you have a fear of hurting other people. And so when you're in those types of situations, it can be really hard to walk away because you love this person and you don't want to hurt them. None of us want to do that, right? But the reality is that both people are going to be hurt when a relationship ends. It's two people who love each other who are now breaking up. That's going to be hurtful for both people involved. So the hurt of the relationship, it's inevitable. But often, sometimes we just can't seem to do what's necessary because the fear of actually hurting somebody's feelings is bigger than our desires to walk away from that relationship. Another fear that has really hit home for me in the past is the fear of being alone. As somebody who was like a serial dater, as somebody who struggles with abandonment wounds, like that for me was something that was a big reason as to why I would stay in relationships for a long time. It'd be something like, well, this relationship doesn't necessarily feel good, but it's better than being alone. And when you find yourself in that place where you're willing to entertain or occupy relationships that really don't serve you, just because you don't want to be alone, you end up being more miserable than what you would be if you were by yourself. But again, in the moment, you can't really look past that because the fear of being alone is much greater than the discomfort that you feel with this person, right? And that leads me to my other point, which is a reason why people don't leave relationships is familiarity. Like, how many of us have been in a situation where, you're not comfortable in the relationship? It's chaotic, it's unhealthy, it's toxic, but we don't go nowhere, right? Like, we stay in the situation. That is oftentimes correlated to either our experiences growing up or just the things that we've become used to over the threshold of our lives. Like, when you exist in chaos frequently, it's not really as bothersome to be in a relationship that feels just as chaotic, right? Like, sometimes that familiarity with discomfort in your relationships and that familiarity with chaos in your relationships is exactly why you will stay in a relationship that isn't serving you or isn't good for you. Because yes, it is chaotic. Yes, it is all over the place. Yes, it is unhealthy. But the idea of starting over again can be very intimidating for people. And that's why they choose to stay in relationships with people that are not good for them, don't serve them, over walking away from it. And like I said, I understand firsthand how difficult it is to walk away from people that you're familiar with. It's almost like this entitlement. Like, this situation is a mess, but it's my mess, like, oh, this person's habits, yes, they get on my nerves, but that's my person and their habits. Like, I'm just going to deal with it, right? And so when we get ourselves to a point where we're even willing to claim that as ours, or we're even willing to defend and stand up for that type of dysfunction, we are now part of the problem. And it's time to assess what role you're playing in the situation, right? And so with that being said, I want to be able to transition to, when is it time to let go of a relationship, right? Like, what are the signs and when do you know that it's time to move on? So, number one is when you don't feel safe physically or emotionally, it's time to go. Period, point blank. If there are any signs of abuse, be it mentally, physically, emotionally, that is a sign that it is time to let go. I know a lot of people will put an emphasis on physical safety, which obviously, right? Like, if someone is putting their hands on you, that is absolutely not okay, and it is a situation that you do need to get out of, right? We also have emotional abuse. We have emotional unavailability. Those are all situations where it doesn't feel safe to be in those situations. And you have to ask yourself, is this a situation worth staying in if I can't even depend on my partner at all emotionally? It's very important to feel safe in love. It's very important to feel seen, heard, and recognized. And when people do things, whether it's subconsciously, whether it's intentionally, whether it's unintentionally, to make you feel unsafe emotionally, it's really hard to move from that, right? It's really hard to act as if that's not a thing, right? It's very important that we recognize that when we feel unsafe, even if it's emotionally, that's our bodies telling us that this situation is not one of peace for us. Number two, your partner can no longer be trusted. Trust is the foundation of all relationships. We've all heard the saying before, but when you have no trust, you literally have nothing. And that's just the reality of the situation. And it's one of those things that I hate, because when people do things to ruin the trust that you've established for them, it hurts so bad, because it sometimes is irreparable, right? Like, they do something to you and now you're just on alert waiting for the next time, or now you have questions and you're like, well, is that going to happen again? Okay, well, if they don't do that, then are they going to do this? And what if they're thinking this? And it's so frustrating and it's so disappointing, because it just puts so many doubts in your mind about the relationship and whether or not you can really be comfortable with them based on the thoughts that consume you about this person's behaviors. Number three is there's unequal give and take. It takes two people to maintain a relationship. If you were in a situation where only one person is doing the heavy lifting, then it's completely unfair. At the end of the day, when you have only one person doing the work, what happens is it creates an imbalance. And based on that imbalance, your scales are tipped, right? Like, you just imagine if there's two people, there's a stick over both of our shoulders. One bag has 100 pounds on my side, and then your bag has 10 pounds on your side, right? If my bag has 100 pounds on my side and your bag has 10 pounds on your side, and we're both walking, carrying these bags with a stick over our shoulders, just imagine it, right? Who's going to be suffering more while we're walking and carrying this load? I'm going to be suffering more, because obviously I'm carrying 100 pounds of baggage and you're only carrying 10. If we are able to shift this, and if you're able to carry some of this load that it takes for us to move these bags and get to where we have to go, then it will be a little bit more balanced. But what's going to happen if I'm carrying 100 the whole time and you're carrying 10? You're having an easier time getting through this journey, and I'm the one struggling. Oh, after some time doing this, I'm going to feel bitter. I'm going to resent you, because your load is lighter than mine and you're watching me struggle and we're not getting anywhere. I'm doing the most of the work and I'm the one struggling. And that's just simply not fair. Nobody deserves to be in that situation. And so if you are, it's a great time to reevaluate your circumstances and ask, is this situation worth me carrying all of this load? What am I benefiting from carrying all of the load and the burden of this relationship? Number four, if your loved ones don't approve of them, that is also a great sign that you may not be in the right situation, right? Like, I'm not one of those that believes that everybody in your life has to love your partner, right? But if adversely everybody in your life doesn't love your partner, they don't like them, then that is a very telling sign. Most of the times, the people in your life are people that love you, care about you, and want to see you do well. If you are in a situation with somebody who is bringing out the worst in you, if you're in a situation with somebody who's bringing you down, if you're in a situation with somebody where they're not helping you get to where you want to be and succeed and strive, then guess what? The people around you are going to see that, and they're probably going to notice that about you, and they're going to have some feedback. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, it sucks so bad to be in a relationship where your friends and family don't want you with that person. Like, it sucks so bad. It sucks so bad, because here you are loving this person. You're seeing the best in them. You're hoping that they can be better. You're believing in their potential, and your family is like, kick them to the curb. You need to be done with them. What do you see in them? They're not treating you well. They're telling you the truth, though. Most of the time, when your family is speaking up and saying things, it's out of concern and love, and not really like trying to throw shade on you. So if you find yourself in a situation where, your loved ones don't necessarily approve of the relationship that you're in, and you're hearing it from multiple people that you trust and love, you might want to take what they're saying into consideration and reevaluate whether this situation is something that you should be hanging on to. Number 5 is one that I think happens to a lot of us when we get to that point where we're just hanging on and we don't necessarily know why. But when a relationship drains your energy, it is time to let go, right? Like if you begin to change in your appearance, if you start looking unhealthy, you have low energy and high stress, it's a great sign that this relationship might have run its course. I know that relationships have their struggle. I know that, you know, you're going to have highs and lows, right? You're not going to have, it's not going to be all peaches and cream with your partner. You're not going to have all moments of being in love with each other and feeling butterflies. However, if the constant state of the relationship or the consistent state of the relationship is you feeling down, you not having energy, you feeling drained after dealing with them, if you're doing a lot of arguing, if you have a lot of conflict, those are all things that eventually just weigh you down and bring down your momentum and cause you to have your energy drained. And so if you're in a situation like that, maybe it's time to reassess what are the pros and cons. Now, this is something that I do when I get to that point, when I feel like my energy is being drained and I'm not really sure if this is a relationship or what my part is. What I love to do is pull out a piece of paper. I write a line down the middle of the paper, and on the left side, I write the word pros, and on the right side, I write the words cons. And I make a list of all the pros and the cons of what I feel and what this relationship is for me, right? What are the pros of this relationship? What are the cons of this relationship? And at that point, I have a great opportunity to look on paper and see whether this relationship is benefiting me or whether it is draining me. If you have a list of cons or pros that's longer than the cons, then great. It might be a situation that you can decide this is salvageable because it's not all bad. There are some bad moments, but it's not all bad. On the flip side, if you have a laundry list of cons and a very few pros of being with this individual, that's a telltale sign that time has run up. Nothing is your, and at that point, you're being impacted negatively more than you're being positively impacted by this individual. And that's not a good situation to be in, like at all. When someone is allowed to drain your energy, that means that they're taking you off your track of what you need to do for yourself. And so, if you find yourself in a situation like that, write that pros and cons list and then figure out where to go from there. Number 6, you've outgrown them. This one is a sad one because with relationships, in the aspect of outgrowing people, you don't necessarily have to have like a toxic or unhealthy environment going on. Like two people can really just grow in different directions. And I think even in those situations, it's harder to let go because the love is still there. The environment is healthy. It's just that two people have grown apart, and that's part of life. Everybody has their own individual journey that they're on in life, and sometimes you might have started somewhere where you and this person were on the same journey and on the same path, but years go by and all of a sudden you guys are growing in different directions, and that's completely okay. It's not something to be upset about. I think it's something to accept sooner rather than later, and then allow yourself to be released to find something that is in line with you and where you're at right now. Lastly, number 7, if you don't like who you are around them, um, when you have to shrink yourself or compromise your authenticity, it may be time to walk away, right? Love is about being accepted, and everyone wants to feel accepted by the person that they love. If you're in a situation where you can't be your best self, where you can't show up fully in your goofiness, in your silliness, in your seriousness, in your mess, in your crying, in your passion, if you can't show up and be authentically you and live the life that you love to live and be accepted by the person that you're living it with, it might not be a good fit, right? Like it might be time to find something different. It might be time to release yourself so that you can be authentic, so that you can live out loud who you are, and then find your tribe and hopefully a romantic relationship within that realm, right? Of who you really are and not a condensed version of yourself. Now, this is an honorable mention, y'all. This is not on the list, but this is my go to prayer for when I feel like it may be time, or when I don't know if I'm where I'm supposed to be in terms of relationship. This is my fail proof go to method, right? Okay, so I ask God, God, if this situation or this person is not what you have in mind for my benefit, if this is not your will for me, please remove them and do it now. That's what I do. I pray just like that. Lord, please remove them and do it now. Now, when you pray this prayer, I'm here to tell you right now. Sometimes God don't care. Like, you ask, God will deliver. When you look up and that person that you've been dealing with and you wanted to stick around and you thought you was going to have something with them, when that person is gone, when that person leave you, when that person decide that you ain't what they want no more because you couldn't let go, you got to be ready. All I'm saying is, if you pray this prayer and you mean it, you have to be ready for the smoke. You have to. Because 9 times out of 10, that thing, that person that you've been hanging on to, that you kind of knew deep down wasn't no good for you, is probably the thing and the person that God's going to snatch right up from underneath you. And when you get it snatched, let it go. That's the key to being able to move on to where God wants you to be, is to let what no longer is supposed to be for you, was probably never for you in the first place, let it go. That's when you get to a point of being able to operate in full faith, right? I believe that everybody has somebody out here for them. I also believe that everybody isn't meant to be in our lives for the rest of our lives, right? There are some times where people that you meet and you're in relationships with, they're only meant to be here in your life for a short time, right? Maybe they're meant to teach you something. Maybe you were meant to learn a lesson from this situation, whatever it is. You got to be willing to know when it's time to let go of that situation, especially when it no longer serves you. My pastor preached a few weeks ago about how sometimes we hang on so tight to situations that God is not even no longer in. Like, we'll be stuck hanging on to this, asking God to bless this. And God is like, honey, I'm not there no more. Right. Like, I've moved on. And when you're ready, I'll be over here. Right. So my whole thing this year is just being wherever God is, right? That's where I want to be. And if God is no longer in a situation, if God no longer has his hands on the situation, then it must mean it's time for me to take mine off of it too. And when I don't have the capacity to show up anymore to a situation, you know, I, my prayer for us is that we will learn how to walk away sooner, right? We'll learn how to notice these signs sooner instead of waiting so long for the relationship to perish us more, for the relationship to torment us more, for the relationship to cause us more pain that we'll ultimately need to heal from, right? Like, let's learn to walk away sooner. Let's learn to notice these signs sooner so that we can end things in a better space for both people, not just for one party, but for both people, right? Because if the situation isn't working for both people, then the sooner that those people can let go and move on from the situation, the better for them and whatever it is that they're going to do next after this situation. And so, to summarize, what are the signs of when it's time to let go? We have number 1, when you don't feel safe physically or emotionally. Number 2, when your partner can no longer be trusted. Number 3, when there's unequal give and take. And number 4, when your loved ones don't approve of them. Number 5, when it drains your energy. And number 6, when you've outgrown them. And number 7, when you don't like who you are around them. And I'm going to throw in that honorable mention again, because if you want that smoke and you really want to know what's up, ask God, if this is not the person that you have for me, please remove them and do it now. And if that person sticks around and is offering you peace and they don't go nowhere, then hey, God might be blessing you. But if all of a sudden that person disappear like a magician in a magic show, baby, let him go. And that's all on that. So I want to I want to thank you all for tuning in to today's episode of the Soul Good podcast. It has been really freeing for me, quite honestly, to talk about this, to lay myself out there and allow myself to be authentic in my own experiences, of, my personal understanding of what it means to move on from a relationship, and how to recognize those signs. I hope that you all have received some insightful information and you're feeling empowered. And we can't wait to see you on the next episode of the Soul Good podcast. And do me a favor, you all, if you are liking this content, if you are liking what you're listening to, please, please, please subscribe to our podcast, tell a friend, or you could leave us a review on our page. Okay. All right. Well, we thank you so much for tuning in. Again, my name is Britani Rose and I'm your host. You are listening to the Soul Good podcast. We will see you next week, and I hope you have a happy Soul Good Sunday.